I love Disney. It's everything that could ever be so popular as it is today. I have been in love with anything related to Disney ever since I started watching them as a kid. From the day Disney started to the movies we have today. Although, one of my all time favorites of all Disney movies was Tarzan. Tarzan was a Disney movie that came out and was made in 1999. I was at least 9 years old when that movie came out. I remember watching that movie from the theaters to watching on VHS to DVD, because nowadays, DVDs are what we have today. Although I have discovered a more dark version of this movie back in 2016, I wish I could see it again to compare to this version that I saw with the Tarzan Disney movie we got today. If you don't know what Tarzan is, let me fill you in on what the movie is about. Tarzan was based on the novel series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. He wrote the entire series of 24 books. Now, I have never read them, but I was so into his works of books that I just recently started to read the novels, and they're a lot more darker than the Disney Tarzan movie we have from Disney. And now on to the event that happened to me that made me look at Tarzan, the movie, a bit differently. It all started back in mid 2015, where I got a job at Best Buy during the summer, where phones, tablets, computers, etc. were all sold amongst with the other stuff and those kind of electronics. However, we sometimes have some movies every once in a while that come in the store, but mostly video games and game consoles. I wanted to work at Best Buy because my sister, who used to go there in her teens, would buy me movies whenever they had them, and video games too. Now that she's 32 years old, she used to work at Best Buy when I was in high school, nearing my graduation year. But she ended up quitting her job for financial reasons, to which I won't go into. After I worked at Best Buy for a couple of months, it was April 2016, and I was really busy with my job. It was also tiring when my shift ended, and I never had the energy to do the things that I like to do, and even the things I want to do. Once in a while, I would sit down on my couch and relax and watch a Disney movie, and that was the day I finally did so in a long time. It was Friday that day, and I was having a stressful day at work, despite the customers being pushy and rude here and there, that I had to put up with. Luckily for me, it was my break time, so I drove out of the Best Buy plaza and went to a restaurant. It was not far from where the plaza was for lunch. I walked inside a Taco Bell for lunch, and it wasn't too busy in there, surprisingly. I ordered my food and waited. Standing next to me was a guy. He seemed to be around my age, and he looked at me, and I gave him a smile through my stressful thoughts going on my head. "Having a stressful day?" he asked me, as I turned my head to face him. "Yeah, Best Buy could be filled with assholes that are a little pushy and rude at times," I replied with. We started a conversation, and when I got to finally see that he worked from Best Buy, he was from. "Do you work at Best Buy?" I asked him, seeing that he has a Best Buy worker shirt on with the name John on it. "Yeah, I'm new here. I started working last month. I've seen you at Best Buy, and I think you're pretty awesome at what you do," John replied as his food was ready at the same time as mine. We grabbed our food, and he offered me to have lunch with him, to which I said yes to that. As we were eating our lunch, we talked about the things that we both liked and disliked. When I mentioned Disney movies, we talked more into detail about those movies. When I said to John about the Tarzan movie being one of my favorites, I explained to him that I couldn't find it at DVD anywhere. I tried ordering the DVD online, but it didn't work. "Have you ever thought of buying a movie from Google Play?" John then asked me. I haven't bought a movie from Google Play before because I use iTunes for that. And I tried looking for the Tarzan movie on there, but I couldn't seem to purchase it because my old iPhone was very old and it didn't work much anymore. Luckily, I got a new phone for Christmas. I replied to John, who looked at his Samsung, to which I had the same phone as he did, with the cover on the back of my phone. "You should be able to get it on Google Play without a problem, and if you do, you can contact me on Best Buy and I can figure the problem out," John said as I finished my lunch, smiled at him before leaving the restaurant to go back to my car and head back to work. I smiled at John and thanked him before I left the restaurant. When I finally got home from work, My fiance was working late on a night shift, so I went on my phone and I went to the Google Play Store on my app. I searched up the movie Tarzan and I got a few results. The one I saw was a Tarzan movie that said Tarzan 1998. I was confused. Wait a minute. It took me a few seconds to realize something was off. Tarzan came out in 1999, not 1998. I then did some research and it said the production of Disney's Tarzan was made sometime between 1997 and 1998 and then released in 1999. Maybe it was a pre-made version of it. I was still confused, but then I decided to look at the ratings of this weird 1998 version of Tarzan. There were only 2 reviews on the ratings of the movie, being 1 out of 5 stars. I looked for the comments of the movie, and one of them saying that it was way too violent for children. Another review said that it had a much more darker tune than the original movie. Even though the movie was dark anyways, but at least it was semi-kid friendly, or at least kid friendly mostly. I thought this movie was pre-made in 1998, and I was lucky enough to see as the other 2 people did that reviewed the movie. So I took a look at the cover. To my surprise, it was a special edition cover. It had Tarzan on the front with Turk, Jane, Tantor, Kala, and everything else that was on the cover. So I purchased the movie on Google Play. I waited for a few moments and I went to play the movie from my phone. I plugged in my earbuds and sat on the couch with my phone in hand, starting to watch the movie. To my surprise, most of the intro played normally. But when it comes to Kala and Kerchak waking up to Sabor, who was chasing their baby, the scene went a little out of place. It seemed longer than I thought. It showed the baby gorilla being killed by Sabor by having him sinking his teeth into the baby gorilla. I thought there was going to be blood and guts, but thankfully there was no blood or guts in it, as it's a kids movie after all. The screen then cuts to Kala and Kerchak heartbroken by the sight of their baby being killed. So far the 1998 version of the film was dark, but I knew that the 1999 version of Tarzan was dark anyway. But at least it was, pretty much kid friendly. I didn't expect Disney to go that dark, but maybe since this was pre-made version of the movie, it didn't make it to the final project, maybe due to the violence that was a little extreme in the movie. The scene where Kala saves baby Tarzan and is rescued before Sabor was all normal. No change whatsoever, although this movie was untouched at certain parts. However, when I got to the part where Kerchak and Kala were talking about baby Tarzan, things started to take a dark turn. Kala, I cannot let you put our family in danger, Kerchak said to his mate. This was a scene where Kerchak wants Kala to take the baby back, but Kala refused. Does he look dangerous to you? Kala asked as Kerchak then got pissed off and roared at Kala, making baby Tarzan cry. He was at the stance where he was enraged. I was getting unnerved at this point. I thought Kerchak was going to hurt his mate or something, but he didn't. Then he finally gave in. He could stay, Kerchak said to his wife, but that doesn't make him my son. When the scene cuts to Tarzan as a child, he was hanging around Turk, who was an ape friend to him, and she dares Tarzan to get the elephant hair, to which things started to get a little more messed up. From here on, I was more unnerved than anything at this point with the elephants, that they were freaking out when they thought that Tarzan was a piranha. Turk and her friends just stared at the scene for a few seconds as the elephants started to stampede, and surprisingly enough, it was a little graphic for this scene when the other gorillas were in the jungle. At first the gorilla didn't know what was happening until the elephants charged for the jungle. Everyone luckily got out of the way just in time. At first, but everyone thought everyone was out of the way of the stampede, but one of the baby gorillas was trampled to death by elephants crushing it. I closed my eyes at this point. I couldn't have a look of what was bound to happen, but all I could hear was the baby gorilla's cry as the elephants were crushing it. After the scene was over, Kerchak looked over at horror along with the other gorillas at the sight of the dead body of the dead baby gorilla. I could see that Kerchak was sad and angry at the same time, and all the other gorillas mourned over the loss of the baby dead gorilla that didn't have the chance to live a good life. The next scene cuts to Turk and Tantor, who thought Tarzan died, drowning while being trampled by the elephants. When he coughed, "He's alive!" Turk said while hugging her friend. Tarzan showed Turk that he got the elephant hair. I don't believe it. You got the hair? Turk was surprised that Tarzan did the dare without dying. Tantor was explaining that he has a lot of hair when Kerchak's booming voice was heard. What happened? Kerchak said with anger. Turk and Tantor stepped back as Tarzan walked up slowly to an angry Kerchak. He tried to explain that he was just playing with Turk and her friends. Tarzan then tried to apologize to Kerchak when he snapped, You killed someone! His voice boomed with rage. But it was an accident, Tarzan replied. He was scared by the fact that Kerchak's yelling in anger was really scaring him. He didn't mean to kill someone, but Kala got to Tarzan's side to defend him from the angry Kerchak. He's only a child, Kala said to Kerchak in Tarzan's defense. That's no excuse, Kala. You can't keep defending him like that. Kerchak growled in dismay. He'll learn. Kala was then cut off by Kerchak's ranting. He'll never learn. He can't learn to be one of us, Kerchak snarled. That's because you never give him a chance. Kala replied with her voice now growing more firm. Give him a chance? Kerchak asked. He didn't care what Kala had to say about Tarzan only being a child, even if he wasn't a gorilla. Kala, look at him. He will never be one of us. Kerchak, Kala said to him, as Tarzan, who felt hurt by the words that Kerchak said about him, made him run off away from his adoptive mother and Kerchak. The film went nice and smoothly from the scene showing Tarzan growing up as an adult, and even the song Son of Man sung by Phil Collins was in great quality, as I loved hearing the songs by him. Then we got to see Tarzan fighting Sabor successfully, as Tarzan kills Sabor and to get trust by Kerchak. However, the silverback still didn't trust Tarzan fully, even if he did kill the jaguar that was threatened to the tribe. Then the next scene cuts to where Tarzan spots Clayton and with Professor Porter and his daughter Jane. That is when shit hit the fan. Jane goes off when a baby baboon stole her sketchbook, so she tries to get it back. But the scene went very differently after this line was said by Jane. Come now, enough of this. I want this paper on the count of 3. 1, 2... Oh, look, bananas! Jane made the baby baboon look as Jane snatched the paper with one of her drawings. She was then greeted by a whole bunch of baboons chasing Jane. Tarzan sees what was going on, so he swings on a vine so he can save her. As he grabs her by the time she was close to a dead end, the baboon chase went on a bit longer than expected. When Tarzan saves Jane from being mauled by baboons, they all started to attack each other. That was creepy. Like, why would they attack each other when they're supposed to be attacking Jane? Well, I don't know, anyway. Tarzan got to the tree where he and Jane would be safe, and that's after the chase ended. Tarzan then started to get close to Jane, only curious about what Jane is. When he took off her glove, he soon realized that Jane is a human, and that would mean he is one too. But Tarzan, who can't speak English, listened to Jane saying, "It's very nice." Tarzan repeated what Jane said. She looked at him in surprise when Tarzan talked to her. He stopped Jane from talking and used his ape language that he learned from the gorillas. Tarzan, he said. But at first, Jane didn't quite understand. Tarzan. Tarzan repeated his name again, and soon Jane got the idea. Tarzan is his name. Oh, I see, Jane replied. The Tarzan began to repeat what Jane said. No. I'm Jane. Jane introduced herself to Tarzan. No. I'm Jane, Tarzan replied, even though he only repeated stuff in English when Jane spoke to him. No. Jane stopped Tarzan for a minute, so she can show Tarzan the better, proper way to introduce herself to Tarzan. Jane, Tarzan, Jane, Jane replied, as Tarzan repeated Jane's name when a gunshot from Clayton echoed through the jungle. Jane then asked Tarzan if he could take her to her camp, to which Tarzan agrees. He picks up Jane and swings from the jungle to take her to her camp. After Tarzan's animal friends trashed Jane's camp, Tarzan and Jane got off to the camp. Jane was with a look of shock when she sees gorillas. Gorillas, she said in amazement, as Tarzan was playing with Turk and talking like a gorilla. He's one of them? Jane was surprised to see that Tarzan was raised by gorillas. When Kerchak showed up, everyone left as soon as Clayton and Professor Porter walked into the camp to see that Jane was unharmed. She went on telling her father and Clayton about how she was chased by baboons and about Tarzan saving her. The next scene cuts to Kerchak warning the tribe about the humans that are strangers to them. But Tarzan argues a bit with Kerchak about the strangers that he met and that they wouldn't hurt them. But Kerchak was being overprotective, looking at Tarzan with a stern look. Protect his family and stay away from them. Tarzan felt like he was being treated like some soldier. He didn't want to listen to Kerchak. Even Kala just told Tarzan to just do it for once. When Tarzan showed up back at the camp to see Jane the next day, he met her father, Professor Porter, and Clayton, from whom they hired for protection. Jane introduced Tarzan to her father and Clayton, to which Tarzan only said a few words in English. When Clayton asked Tarzan to take him along with Jane and her father to see the gorillas, Tarzan, who couldn't speak English well, so Jane suggested to teach him their language. As the next scene went on about Tarzan's new friends, teaching him of what life humans do, he learned a bit from Jane, and Clayton the most, but mostly Jane. The song Strangers Like Me was being played throughout the scene, to which I enjoyed that song since it was one of my favorites of the movie. When Tarzan grabbed a handful of flowers he was planning to give them to Jane, he saw all the commotion going on. People were moving crates and stuff and other. Tarzan, who soon bumped into Jane, looked at him. Tarzan, I was wondering if you would come with us to England? Jane asked Tarzan. When Tarzan was hoping they were just visiting and coming back home to Africa tomorrow, but Jane tells Tarzan that she will not be coming back. So Tarzan kept telling Jane to stay, but she keeps telling him that she can't stay. After telling Tarzan so many times that she can't stay, she runs off from the scene crying. Clayton talks to Tarzan about taking him along with Jane and her father to see the gorillas. At first, Tarzan didn't want to do that, but Clayton asked him, but he finally gave in and gave him the idea for his human friends to see the gorillas. Tarzan disguised Turk and Tantorn as Jane and Professor Porter to lure Kerchak away from the nest of gorillas, to which it worked for a while. When Tarzan took his friends to see the gorillas, including his mom, Kala, Kerchak finds out later that Tarzan betrayed him and his family. Kala then took Tarzan to the treehouse, where she found him as a baby. Tarzan looked at the photo of his mother and father. He soon realized that he was a human, so Tarzan decides to leave with Jane the next day so he could be with humans like him. He said goodbye to Kala that night, to which it made me sad. I knew what it was like to leave someone that you loved behind, even if you had reasons to do so. When the scene transitions to the boat where Jane and her father and Tarzan climbed on board, it was a trap. Clayton had planned on capturing the gorillas to sell them. Tarzan shouts loudly at Clayton as Tantor and Turk found a way to swim onto the boat to save Tarzan and his friends. So the movie went as smoothly as it can be, until when the scene shows Clayton and his man attacking the gorillas. And even Kerchak was trying to protect his tribe. Tarzan along with his friends showed up to confront Clayton. However, the scene was a lot more darker than the Disney movie from 1999 we have. When Clayton shot Tarzan, a loud gunshot rang loudly from my earbuds. Shit, that scared the living shit out of me. I turned the volume of my phone down so I could still hear the movie. When Kerchak roared in anger, he ran towards Clayton to attack him. Another gunshot rang, at least it wasn't as loud as the first one was. The fight scene between Tarzan and Clayton just went as normal with the original movie, until it gets to the part where Clayton cuts through the vines to try to get to Tarzan, when he accidentally hangs himself. The camera then pans out to more focus on the shadow of Clayton's dead body in the shadows. Usually I knew that scene was disturbing, but other than that, I was fine with that since I've seen what it was like that in the original movie so many times. Tarzan is now seen with a dying Kerchak. The gunshot wound was shown to be on the silverback. The wound had a huge gash on it, but it was a bit too graphic. Too graphic that I felt a little sick to my stomach. But I ignored it and continued to watch the movie. Kerchak looks wickedly looks at Tarzan with his last moments with him and everyone else in the jungle. His breath was raspy as Tarzan got close to Kerchak. Tarzan? Kerchak said weakly. Kerchak, forgive me, Tarzan said to his dying tribe leader. No, Kerchak replied weakly. Forgive me for not understanding that you've always been one of us. Our family will look up to you now. Knowing how much this is tearing me up, I started to cry a little too. I lost my grandfather when I was 18 years old, and this reminded me of that tragedy I faced. No, Kerchak, Tarzan replied sadly. Take care of them, Kerchak pleaded. My son. Tarzan held Kerchak's hand for the silverback's last dying breath. Take care of them. Kerchak dies due to the wound being too much for an old silverback to handle. Tarzan then becomes leader of the tribe, and then cuts to a scene where Jane and her father were leaving the lifeboat to the ship. Jane, who felt heartbroken, looked back at Tarzan at the beach. She felt that her heart really belonged to him, so her father said to join Tarzan in the jungle and stay, so Jane did so. And the happy ending was all the same with the movie as we know. After the end credits, I was just speechless. I knew that this movie was a lot dark, but this one was a tad bit darker than the one I know a lot from the original film. It was late at nighttime by the time the movie finished, so I plugged in my phone in the charger and went to bed that night. The next day, I was getting ready for work when I just remembered the Tarzan movie from 1998 I saw. I was a little freaked out by some scenes that were a bit graphic for kids, so it might be why Tarzan didn't come out in 1998. It would have been scaring for kids, but if it did have those graphic parts and stuff. When I got to Best Buy, the worker John was not there, so I wondered to myself what could have happened to him. Soon, later on my shift, my boss told me that John had left his work for unknown reasons, and no one knows why. I didn't know why he left earlier, but after my shift at work was over, I decided to watch the 1998 version of Tarzan again on Google Play. So when I got home, I went to on my phone to look up the 1998 version of the Tarzan movie, but I couldn't find it. All I found was the original movie, along with some other Disney movies. I tried looking for it everywhere, but I had no luck on finding it. So I finally decided to look at the recent purchases, but I couldn't find them on there either. So then I wondered, did Google Play really take that movie down? Well, if it did, they would have done it for many reasons to begin with. But I still have tend to hunt for it. But I still can't find it. Maybe if I ever come across this 1998 version of Tarzan someday, I hope I can see it again and one day show it to my sister. Now that it's 2019, I'm still on the hunt for it, but I still can't find it. I tried everything, but I still can't find the 1998 version of the movie of Tarzan. If I ever were to find it again, I will let you all know.